Throughout history, we've put certain figures up on pedestals, immortalizing them as heroes and role models. But when you look past the accolades, statues, smoke, and mirrors, you realize that many of these so-called heroes have disturbing pasts, rife with controversy, cruelty, and even crime. How often do we scrutinize the conventional narratives surrounding figures like Julius Caesar, Christopher Columbus, Napoleon Bonaparte, Winston Churchill, or Ernesto Che Guevara? Are we challenged enough to reassess our glorification of their deeds? The narratives we've been fed of bravery, discovery, and valor beg the question, what lies beneath the veneer of greatness? In this video, we will uncover the hidden atrocities, indiscretions, and controversies surrounding some of history's most celebrated figures. Welcome to Pastflix. Christopher Columbus. Columbus is famous for sailing the ocean blue in 1492 and discovering the New World, and even had a holiday named after him. However, a deeper look exposes shocking truths about the founding father of the Americas that they definitely didn't teach in school until very recently. According to Columbus's own journals, when he arrived in the Caribbean, he and his men enslaved and brutalized the indigenous Taino people, forcing them to bring them gold and cutting off their hands if they didn't meet their quotas. Columbus wrote in 1493, "Let us, in the name of the Holy Trinity, go on sending all the slaves that can be sold." Columbus also sanctioned mass murder and torture against the Tainos, writing in 1493, "100 castellanos are as easily obtained for a woman as for a farm. There are plenty of dealers who go about looking for girls. Those from 9 to 10 are now in demand." Within just a few decades of Columbus's arrival, a Taino population of 3 to 4 million was completely decimated. By 1542, their population dropped to just 500. Under Columbus's violent colonization efforts, in just a few years, an entire culture and civilization vanished. So while elementary school textbooks praise Columbus as an admirable explorer, a closer examination reveals his direct role in terrorizing and destroying an entire indigenous people. The real Columbus was no hero at all, but rather a ruthless invader driven by greed, exploitation, and genocide. King Richard I. Jumping back in time several centuries, we come to Richard the Lionheart, the legendary English Crusader king. Richard earned his famous epithet after leading the Third Crusade between 1189 and 1192 into the Holy Land to capture Jerusalem. He remains one of England's most celebrated rulers, famed for his courage, chivalry, and military prowess. But when you dig deeper, a more complex and sinister picture emerges. The Crusades that Richard championed were marked by extreme religious prejudice, brutality, and barbarism on both sides. Chroniclers at the time wrote of crusaders wading through rivers of blood up to their ankles and pregnant women being gutted alive. After capturing the city of Acre, Richard ordered the execution of nearly 3,000 Muslim prisoners, including women and children. Arab historian Ibn al-Athir wrote, "The amount of blood we saw that day was enormous. No one could count the number of people killed." Richard was also known for extreme cruelty towards Jews across England. In 1190, he ordered the torture and execution of dozens of Jews in York after ransacking their homes. As kings go, Richard was a bold warrior and charismatic commander, but also a brutal and vicious ruler. His inhumane campaigns make him far from the noble knight in shining armor some historians would have us envision. Julius Caesar. The name alone resonates with power, political prowess, and the advent of the Roman Empire as we know it. Julius Caesar, known for his impressive military conquests and the reformation of Rome, stands as an emblem of charisma, authority, and ambition. In 49 BCE, at the Rubicon River, Caesar's audacious crossing catapulted Rome into a civil war. The term crossing the Rubicon is now enshrined as a term meaning to cross the point of no return. It marked the beginning of his rise to dominate and reshape the Roman Empire in his time, and its legacy throughout history. His military genius and the subsequent triumph over Pompey cemented his place in history as an unparalleled leader. However, beyond the laurels of conquest lies a more disconcerting reality. Caesar's ascent to power was stained with authoritarianism and the erosion of the Roman Republic's democratic principles. His conquest of the tribal peoples in Gaul was marked by military victories stained by ruthless tactics, resulting in many of his political opponents demanding he be given over to the Gauls for violating laws of Roman valor. The phrase veni, vidi, vici, I came, I saw, I conquered, immortalizes his triumphs, yet it conceals the trail of destruction and genocide left in his wake. His ride to dictatorship, while initially celebrated for its perceived stability, gradually sowed the seeds of an autocratic regime, ultimately leading to the fall of the Republic and his own assassination. Caesar's ambitions were unyielding, and his actions, often portrayed in history as bold and decisive, were the prologue of his own tyranny. The dichotomy between his heroic feats of leadership and despotic commandments challenges the very essence of what we consider heroic. Napoleon Bonaparte. Julius Caesar's autocratic rule was a harbinger of powerful leaders to come. Centuries later, Napoleon Bonaparte would rise to despotic heights and dramatically reshape Europe through his conquests, inspired by the legendary accounts of leaders like Caesar and Alexander the Great. Like Caesar, Napoleon had gone down in history as a brilliant military strategist and daring leader. He cemented many progressive reforms in France and conquered vast swaths of territory across the continent. Some French historians may qualify that as heroic. But Napoleon's unquenchable ambition came at a terrible cost. His endless wars resulted in over 3 million military and civilian deaths across Europe. During his invasion of Russia alone in 1812, over 1 million French soldiers perished, while tens of thousands more Russians were killed. After his final defeat in Waterloo in 1815, the Pope declared that the world had been delivered from the yoke of the most iniquitous oppression. The British philosopher John Stuart Mill later wrote that Napoleon was wholly unscrupulous in his sacrifice of the lives and liberties of others. Clearly, behind the legend of Napoleon as a champion of liberty lurked a delusional tyrant who unleashed death and suffering on an unprecedented scale. His legacy of enlightened reforms is permanently stained by one of the darkest periods of bloodshed in modern history. Thomas Jefferson. Revered as a founding father of America, principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and the third president of the United States, Jefferson remains a towering figure in American history. The late 18th and early 19th centuries saw Jefferson's ascendancy, with 1801 marking his inauguration as president. His vision for America was one of liberty, democratic ideals, and agricultural prosperity. His words, "All men are created equal," enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, resonate through the annals of time as a beacon of freedom. However, the radiance of Jefferson's legacy is shadowed by a dark reality. His authorship of one of history's most eloquent proclamations of human rights stands in stark contrast to his personal actions. Jefferson, a recorded slave owner, held hundreds in bondage throughout his life, raising profound questions about the moral incongruities within the champion of liberty. His intellectual prowess and dedication to democratic principles coexist with a legacy tarnished by the inherent contradictions between his advocacy for equality and his personal ownership of individuals. The controversies surrounding his relationship with Sally Hemings, an enslaved woman with whom he had children, further complicates the intricate tapestry of his legacy. Jefferson's role in shaping the young nation was profound, yet the discordance between his advocacy for freedom and his personal participation in the institution of slavery casts a somber shadow on his revered status. His contradiction between the ideals he championed and the reality of his actions challenges the very essence of heroism. Winston Churchill. Churchill, the famous British statesman, war leader, and prime minister during World War II, is lauded as an iconic, scathing, and defiant voice that stood against the tyranny of Nazi Germany, shaping the course of history. In the midst of the tumultuous 20th century, the late 1930s marked Churchill's ascent to the position of prime minister, coinciding with a time of immense global upheaval. His resolute speeches, notably "We shall fight on the beaches," rallied a nation facing the brink of invasion, earning him a place as a symbol of unwavering courage and leadership. Yet beyond the veneer of wartime valor lies a mosaic of controversy and complexity. Churchill's legacy, while undeniably vital in Britain's fight against fascism, is marred by a cloud of colonialism and controversial decisions that echo throughout history. The Bengal famine in 1943, where millions perished due to food shortages exacerbated by British policies, remains a stain on Churchill's tenure. His role in perpetuating British imperialist ideals, the assertion of British dominance over its colonies, and the callous disregard for the suffering of people in countries under colonial rule underscore a less glorified aspect of his legacy. His alleged disparaging remarks about various ethnic groups and his stringent advocacy for imperial control over India media, during a time of fervent nationalism, amplify the enigmatic shadow that hovers over his celebrated achievements. Churchill's bold leadership in times of crisis, intertwined with the complexities of his political decisions and the ramifications of his colonial mindset, presents a perplexing dichotomy. The question emerges, can the valor of a wartime leader outweigh the repercussions of colonial policies and inflammatory statements? Ernesto Che Guevara. Ernesto Che Guevara, a key figure in the Cuban Revolution and an icon of rebellion, continues to captivate the imagination of many with his fervor for social change and armed struggle. Amidst the tumultuous mid-20th century and the late 1950s saw Guevara fighting alongside Fidel Castro in the Cuban Revolution. His resolute determination and unwavering commitment to overthrowing the Batista regime thrust him into the limelight as a symbol of anti-imperialist resistance and a champion of the oppressed. However, concealed behind the romanticized images of the beret-wearing revolutionary lies a more contentious narrative. Guevara's fervor for armed struggle extended beyond the Cuban borders, delving into controversial ventures in other parts of the world. His involvement in attempts to foment revolution in various Latin American countries led to charges of guerrilla warfare and insurgency. Moreover, his uncompromising zeal for Marxism-Leninism and his role in the Castro government, where he presided over controversial trials and executions, paints a picture of a revolutionary whose methods often clashed with traditional norms of justice and governance. His famous phrase, "Hasta la victoria siempre," until victory, always, embodied his unyielding spirit, but also underscored the uncompromising nature of his pursuits. The romanticized image of Guevara as a hero of the oppressed stands juxtaposed with the contentious aspects of his revolutionary journey. His fervor for change, combined with controversial methods and alliances, has ignited debates about the ethical boundaries of revolutionary action. This is Pastflix, and we'll see you next time.